Welcome to HempLogic Radio, where we attempt to sift facts from opinions in this upside-down world of industrial hemp.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Corey. I'm the host of HempLogic Radio. Today we've got Shay Myers. He's a hemp farmer in just outside of Boise, Idaho. I believe he grew. I'm waiting for him to call in right now. He grew here in Oregon this last year. And what intrigues me about Shay, oh, here he is. Hang on just a second.
Hear with that.
Good morning, Shay.
Good morning.
Shay, good morning. Hey, I was just introducing you. So, Shay, so you grew in Oregon, right? You're outside of Boise, right?
That's right. We're right on the border of Oregon, Idaho.
Cool. Well, what I was getting at when I was talking about when you called in was you intrigued me because you're a successful farmer for other things, and that's one of the things that I always hear in the industry as well. I'm a successful farmer doing all these other things. Hemp should be easy, and that's why you've always intrigued me because of the size and breadth of what you do. Can you give us a little bit? First of all, how do you pronounce the name of your produce company?
So the produce company is Owaihi Produce. The parent company for all of this is Froor Farms. That's the family name on my mom's side of the family. So Froor.
Okay. So it's Howie?
Owaihi. Think Hawaii.
Hawaii.
With an O.
Okay.
That's what it's from. It's an 18th century spelling of Hawaii, so it's Owaihi.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, kind of walk us through what you do on a daily basis, and then kind of maybe get into a little bit of how you got into hemp. I think that's the most people want to know. What's the path? What's your journey like?
Sure. So, figure out like a daily project, or walk in the life of Shay for a day here. I came back to the farm in 2005 after college, and my family had been farming since the 50s. I'm generation 3 on our operation. There's quite a bit of difference between a farmer mentality, and this isn't disparaging in no way, but there's a very big difference between a farming mentality and a business or entrepreneurial mentality. And our farm was all farm-based. We grew a commodity. We took the price that everybody gave us, and that's what we did until I came back in 2005. And really, we didn't start marketing our own crops until a little bit closer to 2007. And that's been my model. I've come back. I manage the sales, packing, and distribution of our onions, asparagus, and sweet potatoes. And that's something that we've grown. Like, while we've grown at least asparagus and onions, we've grown for better than 20 or 30 years. The way that they were marketed was vastly different. It was, some broker would call, or somebody would call from a commodity standpoint, or they would go to a custom packing shed and be sold there. So my job basically today is to run the overall operations from a production, sales, and logistics side. So I'm a farm kid, grew up a farm kid, but I'm not, on the farm every day. I'm in communication with my cousin and my uncle that are doing it every day. So I'm pretty dialed in, but we have segmented our roles so that we can kind of improve our abilities and not spread ourselves too thin.
You're more the entrepreneur part of the farm then, and I've seen this happen with quite a few farms. Either you adapt or you die, and it's a different market. It's just not farming like your grandfather did. It's a little different, and I've seen you do a lot of videos on LinkedIn, and I really like the videos that you do explaining what you do, and it's always nice to have. So I can see where the farm has transformed into that entrepreneurial type of thing. So what would you guys, how did you get into hemp? What perked your ears up and wanted to get into hemp?
Yeah, that's a good question. How did we get into this? obviously as the Farm Bill, we had looked at it before. Being in Oregon, we'd contemplated the idea of growing hemp prior to the Farm Bill. We're already where we're already doing a lot of specialty crops. We did obviously, and we thought it was a natural fit. Like we're the only growers of sweet potatoes in the northwestern United States. Nobody else does it. We're like, if we can figure out how to grow a sweet potato, we can grow a good hemp crop. So we started with the idea of just kind of looking at what was out there and what we might be able to do. And when the Farm Bill changed over, before that, it wasn't worth the risk for us. We're like, we're not going to risk it. We have too much riding on our, on what I'll call the legitimate side or the core part of our business to risk the volatility that hemp would bring to it because it's not federally legal. And when that changed over, we had already been kind of toying around and playing with the idea, looking at some processors and folks to work with. And then all the hype too, right? I mean, I'm not sure if you coined the phrase or somebody brought up calculator eyes. I think in one of your past videos you talked about calculator eyes, but I mean, you have that too. Yeah. You got all this excitement about all these dollars rolling around and the opportunity, and you feel like you should get in.
Well, and that's just it. You start doing the math, and I don't know how many times you sat on a table with somebody. I know I sat around the table many, many, many times, and the damn calculator come out, and people would just lose their minds. I had it. I had my own in-house attorney tried to steal my company. It's just people lose their minds, and it's just nothing but a calculator.
Right. Well, and the variables
we got to get out of the field.
So extreme. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people learned that lesson really quickly. I mean, like, how many guys got in this year with a piece of dirt and zero experience? There were a lot. I mean, there's a lot of acres, and maybe you're plugged more in on this, but I've heard of lots and lots of acres that were never even harvested. And I saw that in my own valley over here, hundreds and hundreds of acres that didn't even get harvested because they were either weed patches or they were all seeded out and no good. But even in full disclosure, even if you executed, which we feel like we did, we had lots of failures, lots of things we screwed up on. But even executing probably in the 90th percentile, maybe in the 95th percentile, I'd argue, to find a home for everything has been much more challenging than what I think anyone expected. And it goes back to the best explanation. Some have called it the Wild West. What I like to think of it as, if I'm explaining it to people, is a mining town. Like it's the gold rush, and everyone's coming to the gold rush. But I might be the first guy there, and I might find the mother lode vein and have all this gold. But there's no road to even get it to the bank. There's no bank to even sell the gold to. There's no transportation for the bank once they're there to get the cash or the gold to the market. Like, nothing in the infrastructure is truly established, and it's way less established, I think, than what everyone thought.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, and you're the fascinating part of this business, in my point of view, because you're a successful farmer. You actually got your product out of the field, and you have a great product, and you still are holding on to it. You still have it. Finding a proper home for what you produced it's very difficult. So that's why you're on the top end of everything, where you're a successful farmer, you had a successful crop, but you're still struggling in the marketplace. And this is some of the things that I wanted to get out there today was talking about this kind of stuff. So what you started growing, or okay, we're going to do it this year. What kind of process did you guys go through?
So our planting process, or just the thought process, or
no? I mean, okay, so you're sitting with your family, and you're going, okay, we're gonna do some acreage. What was your game plan? Without knowing really anything about the industry, you had to sit down and go, well, what's our game plan? What kind of things did you do?
Sure. So I mean, to be real candid and direct, we would not have gotten in without. And I've got an NDA, so I can't specifically mention the name, but we had a processor come to us and say, look, we need a quality grower. It matters to us how this is grown, and we need to have some confidence in our supply. So a good portion of our crop was already committed with a home. Now, the processor has struggled to get their equipment in a timely fashion, and they've had tons of snafus. Like I've said, with all the infrastructure and the challenges in the supply chain, everyone is struggling, from those with the best intentions and those with the worst intentions. Everyone is struggling. But that's how we got started. We weren't going to get into this and risk. We did almost 600 acres. We weren't going to risk 600 acres. That was not in the cards, especially at the dollars it was going to take. So we had a commitment for 75% of our crop, and we were directed on where to go for the genetics by the processor. They picked out the genetics, and then again, there's another problem. We were delayed almost 80 days in our planting. We were planting in we ripped out our wheat crop. We ripped out our wheat crop, put in our drip tape, prepped all the ground. We were planning on planting on June 10th. Our last slips went in, or the last seed actually, because we did a lot of direct seeded, went in on August 4th. You can't do that. Like the fact that we even had a crop with all of that happening, I'm not trying to talk ourselves up, but if we didn't have an idea what we were doing, we would have never had any hope at all. And it was still a pretty significant failure if you look at it as far as what the potential was. But
sure, yeah,
again,
but
contract,
that's the cool part about it. You got out of the field.
We got out of the field. Yeah, we got out of the field. We figured out the processes. We did several different methods. We combined, we hand harvested, and then bucked it. We did some wet process. I mean, we did a little bit of everything to try and figure out what, in the long term, is going to make the most sense. Because, and I think obviously you were way ahead of this as far as what the value is going to be. 80, 90, $1 a point. I don't know what the number is going to be long term, but it's going to be cheap. This is not going to be this is a commodity crop already, and moving forward, if you can't make something work off of, we figure 12% is pretty good in ag, return. You might have to do something better because of the volatility right now, but you're not going to see a 40% or 80% or 90% return like we thought we saw in the beginning. You're talking, 12, 18, maybe 20%, I think. I mean, and that might be generous. I don't know what you think.
I think we did the numbers. When we did the numbers, I think we were looking at right around between, I want to say 45 to 50 cents. What it was going to cost per percent if you did a 10. If your baseline was 10%, I want to say it.
Yeah.
It might have been 60, but yeah, I think you're right. This has already turned in 1 year. This already has turned into a commodity. It's like everything else: hay, wheat, corn, soybeans, and you're going to have to cut costs. The seed to genetics. I'm already, because I'm looking for genetics now, and I'm seeing genetics. Everybody, the days of the dollar a seed. Everybody's breeding. Of course, you have to weed through all that, but your costs are going to go down because of the way, if you're going to do direct seeding, and I believe direct seeding is the way of the future for hemp, just because of the pollination issue. Why spend $1? Why spend $1 a seed when your neighbor's planting hemp for fiber across the road? It's stupid. So
yeah,
the industry will rotate, change.
Yeah, sorry, I mean to cut you off. The direct seeded, we did a significant amount of direct seeded. The thing about with the genetics out there, the genetics aren't there for direct seeded yet. I mean, if somebody wants to go try it, it can be done, but it's not going to be successful. Maybe in a year, from last year to this year, the genetics has improved enough that it might make more sense, but it does have to get to direct seeded. I completely agree with you there. Like this whole transplant thing doesn't make sense. But currently, I'm not sure.
Not on an economic scale, and also the risk of being pollinated. Yeah, there's too much risk. It's too much risk on that. So the industry will change. You're talking about being in your area, people getting pollinated. That's not the end of the world, other than it kills your content. But you can still separate the seed from the biomass and still save something of it. It's not right. Something that's a complete loss. So, but that's where we have to, as an industry, rotate and pivot to the equipment side, where you're actually direct seeding, cutting off the biomass and then separating the biomass from the seed so you have something to send through the processor. And that people are still learning, figuring that out. So
yeah, for sure.
You get into the field. You work with your contract. You get into the field. What are some of the other things that you guys, right out of the gate, you realize, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore here, guys. This is a different animal. Was there any of those kind of moments?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the industry as a whole is what really made us figure that out. Like in agriculture, if we tell you we're going to do something, 9.5 times out of 10, if I just tell you and you tell me and we agree, whether we shake hands on it or not, you commit to something and I do, it's going to happen, regardless of what it takes. And unfortunately, this industry is not that way. I think it's getting better slowly, but a commitment from someone was not the same type of commitment that we're used to in agriculture. When someone committed to a delivery time, or if they committed to any number of things, or selling your crop for that matter. I mean, how many times have I had someone call me and say, hey, I've got everything sold and this is the price, and then I never hear from them again. It's just a completely different industry. And we just don't do that in ag. If you and I talk and we're going to do something and we agree, it's done. It's okay. You need it tomorrow. Okay. And so you get to a point where we were getting trucks lined up, having everything set up, because that's what we're used to. We're shipping, 40 or 50 loads a week of, product out. That's what we're used to. We line up the freight, we get the wheels there, and they're like, oh, well, wait, we were not ready. And you're like, well, why did you tell me you were ready? I think that has been the most surprising thing about the industry as a whole, is just the lack of integrity, the absolute lack of integrity.
Well, I know from my experience,
I don't want to say every level, but at a lot of levels.
Well, and I'll say from my experience and what I dealt with, you get in, you start having these you're right, you have these conversations with people that I knew for a couple of years, and you have these conversations, you get down the road with these guys, and you shake hands, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, and you walk in, and you go, oh no, and it's scale, it's the scale. And I said this numerous times over the last year, was scale will eat everybody's lunch, because it was eating mine. Not because I didn't see what was happening. It was the people that I had connected with that they didn't understand the scale. And, just conversations, oh no. But going back to what you said, in the agriculture business, it works a little different. So I can see a little tension on your part. Oh, okay. So when he says something, I have to wait to see if it actually comes true before I do anything, and so it backs up.
Right. and you actually nailed something there too, Corey. Like the scale, people don't understand. Like when we actually had people out to the farm, to our operations, and this includes onions or soups. It doesn't matter what they come to see. Their minds are blown. That's why I do these videos on LinkedIn, is so people understand the scale of what we're doing to have the cheapest food in the world in this country, right? And hemp's going to be the same way. Like the cheapest hemp in the world is going to come from the United States, because we're going to scale up and do things in such a way that we can be very competitive on a national and international level. And I guess that's the other thing that surprised me, is like I don't know what people were expecting. I think there's a lot of people that were coming to a farm really for the first time, so they didn't even know what to expect. And then the ones that were coming to a large-scale farm like ours versus the small ones they were seeing was just, again, that same thing, like scale. It's like, well, sometimes they're like, well, why don't you just have people go out and pick? And I'm like, do you understand? Like, we're talking about 600 acres. Let's do the math, how many millions of plants that is. We can't just have people go pull the buds off of all of those plants. It's not going to work. That doesn't happen. And even if it did, it's not going to pay for very long. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I want to say it was the 1st of September, I had 400 some odd acres, a guy with 400 some odd acres. He had no harvest plan. And I just, what do you mean? It's September, bud. And he goes, I know, but this and this and this. He just kept saying all the things that didn't happen. this guy was supposed
Right.
to do this, and this guy was supposed to do this, and he's sitting there with 400 acres of very expensive genetics. He really went. These investment groups went deep into genetics, and he had no harvest plan. And he was, of course, trying to salvage the smokable flower. His thing was smokable flower. I'm in the middle, and you have time for smokable flower. You need to start figuring out a game plan and getting this out of the field. He had a massive weed problem as well, so complicating everything, compounding the problems, the weeds. And he just looked at me, and his eyes glossed over, and of course what I was telling him was not what he wanted to hear. I don't know whatever happened to that whole thing, but it's just another story on top of another story of a farmer, people getting involved in something that they have no business getting involved in on the scale that they're in.
Right.
So we get into the field, and so what you get close to harvest. What's going on? So tell us a little bit about your harvest and how you got out of the field, because you were successful.
Yes.
So it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, we tried multiple methods. Like, to say we didn't hand harvest anything is not the case. We did hand harvest some, and we used we have our big drying rooms that are utilized for drying onions. We use those buildings, and fortunately for us, we didn't have to hang. They're bin storages, so we just put the plants inside those. We'd harvest in hand, put them in bulk trucks, bring them in, dump them at the site, and then reload them again into those bins, into these drying rooms. They're pretty cool because they're both onion and sweet potato, so we can control the humidity, we can control the temperature. We were able to really kind of regulate what we were doing, although we still didn't know what we were doing and what was the right way to bring the temps down. It worked fairly well. And so we used that method, and then either hand fed into a combine after that was dry, and got the biomass, or we bucked, although we didn't buck very much, but then we bucked into just bulk sacks, using kind of a similar method, just handling everything by hand. We're fortunate to where we're at, a lot like up there, it's a very dry climate. So we were also able to windrow, dry in the field, and then combine, in place. That's probably where the future is headed to me. Although the combines, it's too hard on your combine. There's got to be a better method, to that madness as well. But at least it was something that we could attempt to do. And then the last method that we used for most of our crop was a chopper. It was wet chopped, and then and then stored like that. And that, it's a fast, easy process. We haven't run enough of the biomass. This is all nitrogen purged bags, so we'll see what we have. Processing starts next week, and we'll know where that is. But I can't even speak to like what the quality is. I know what the CBD content is, but I don't know at the end of the day what that's going to mean yet.
Well, and that's I'm not a big proponent of that. I believe, first of all, you have to have an extractor that's willing to take wet material, because it stinks up everything. You're more or less processing silage. And so people that don't know what silage is, you take a product, whether it's corn, or you take the whole stock corn, or you take hay or hemp, and you put it in. Normally, you put it in big stacks on the ground. With hemp, you're going to put it in a bale, and then that material it morphs into a silage, something that's stable. I mean, a couple of years, I think, that you can get by with that. The extraction side is still to be, in my knowledge, it's unknown. And then, of course, you hear the horror stories. They open up the bales and black goo what drains out. So
yeah, there's that too. And then there's a lot invested in the crop. Like if it was corn, you're not risking that much. Yeah,
you're talking something that's worth $10,000 a bale or more, and you're hoping that it works. I have a hard time with that. I would be more comfortable laying it on the ground. Oh, another thing, I don't know. I just found this out, is guys that panicked in Colorado and Montana, and when the storm hit right there, like the middle of September, Remember when that big cold snap went through? Oh, you were dealing with your onions.
I was in the middle of it. Yeah, I was dealing with it with onions. Exactly. Yeah.
You were dealing with it, but not with hemp. So that cold snap in September, everybody that panicked and went in with their swathers and cutters and cut everything down, trying to get it out of the field, those guys lost everything they cut. But the guys that couldn't get into the field were able to come back. The plant did not die. It kind of hibernated. Something that I was kind of shocked about. I figured when it got as cold as it did, the plant would, just rot away in the field. That's not true. These guys were coming back in after the fact and still being able to harvest their crop. So lesson learned on that.
There's some tip burn and some stuff like that.
Yeah, don't cut it. Don't cut it and let it sit in the field. I mean, there were some fields that were completely covered in snow. And then, of course, 2 weeks later, it had melted, and they got back in there once it got out and got it harvested. So I'm shocked, and they're like, oh, okay, this is good to know. So
lesson learned. Although that was a once in a century storm, hopefully we're not dealing with that too much.
And that's some people, but because your thought process is got to get it out of the field, we got to get it out of the field. Versus, let it snow, man. Let it get cold. It'll dry out.
Yeah, like corn.
Kind of corn. Yeah, my partner, my former partner, we started HempLogic together. He does corn, and it's March, and he goes, his dad just passed away, but he's like, this is ridiculous. We're in March. I'm disking behind my combine and literally planting in the same field. He goes, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Definitely not the way to harvest corn. So, so what are you thinking? What do you think about the future? Where are you thinking you guys are going to go for the future of hemp?
We just had a meeting about that yesterday, just kind of weighing our options. We don't know. We don't know yet. To get all the way out from where we were is not probably in the cards. I can tell you for sure that I don't see an expansion in our near future until the volatility has worked its way out of this. It's too risky. It's just too hard. And I think there's going to be a ton learned. I can't imagine. There was a lot of people saying, 3 months ago or 4 months ago that we would double the acreage again. I have a really, really hard time. I mean, I know virtually no one. I know one person that has sold their biomass or their CBD at this point, or their tea-free. Like, there's a lot of stagnation out there, and if I'm who I am, or if I'm a smaller farmer and there's not big money in it, or if I'm an investment group even more so, why am I going to play in this? So, to me, I see for us a contraction. I imagine a contraction in the entire industry, but a lot of times you take your perspective on something and you broadcast that across everyone else with a broad brush. I'm not sure if that's the case, but it's certainly my perspective.
The crazy part is I was on LinkedIn, somebody hit me up, and there are these new states that have just now, so 2020 is their first year getting into the hemp business. And I've had two conversations with people, and they, we're going to do 1,000 acres. We're going to do 10,000 acres. And I said, have you been paying attention to hemp industry? What's going on inside the hemp industry? And you're talking nonsense. Well, they failed because they didn't study as much as we have. But they don't understand. They're as good as farmers as we are. And the arrogance coming from these guys, I just, I don't know. I guess if they want to give me money, I guess I'll take it. But it just seems like you're not learning from history. You got that calculator out, and by God, you're going to do it. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me sometimes, but hey, this is the business that we're in. So, we go along with it. So, Well, that's it. That's interesting. What would you get? What one piece of advice would you give future farmers of hemp, whether it's 20 acres or 200? What would be your little bit of knowledge, little nugget of knowledge you got for us?
I guess I got 2 points. It depends on whether you have a farming background or not. But the first thing with the person that it has been a farmer is this is nothing like anything you've ever thought about growing before. And this is coming from a family farm that's growing, 8 to 10 different crops a year. It is nothing like you've ever grown before. And I don't mean, I mean from you don't understand the genetics, you don't understand the harvest methods, you don't understand anything, right? Your understanding is just you're an infant that's barely learning to crawl. You have to take that into account. If you're the regular person that's coming into this, and you think you want to, put 100 acres in with, some farm buddy you have or something like that, I think it's the risk involved. The risk is way higher than farming's always risky. Okay, when you put an onion crop in the ground, you're risking whether you're going to get it harvested, whether you get a hailstorm, whether you are going to actually have something to sell at the end. But that the investment there is a quarter to half of what you're talking about investing in hemp. And that is an established industry with people that you can go to. Like in a Hail Mary, I can call people and people are going to come in and they're going to be able to not save my butt, but keep me from losing everything. This industry, the hemp industry, is not that way still. Like you can make your Hail Marys and good luck seeing who actually, answers your prayer, because there's not many people that are going to be there. And if they are there, there's very, very, very few people who are going to perform and execute. And we built our business on execution. So I'm really, really very keen on working with people that can execute. And that is, I don't know how many there are in the hemp industry, but I can guarantee you that it's very limited.
I'm sorry. You pretty much nailed what I've been talking about for the last almost year. It's just funny. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'll try and laugh along.
I love it. But I love this industry. I think it's so cool being on the forefront of this. But it's also so frustrating when people won't. Don't go there. You're gonna die. Do 5 acres. Don't do 500, and they don't listen. You find out that they went forward and. Or they'll call you and go, "Can you help me? I need to get rid of this, or I need to get harvested, I need to get planted, I need whatever." I'm sorry, man, I can't help you. I wanted to help you when you were helpable. You're not helpable right now. So yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good little tidbit. Well, I think you know what I do appreciate your time that you spent talking with us on the program here. If you, for those out there listening, Shay Myers, he's on LinkedIn. Check him out. He's a great guy, and he definitely knows how to farm. I can tell you that. So, Shay, do you have anything you want to add to the program before we sign off here?
No, I just appreciate you giving me the chance to talk, and I wish us all luck. It's going to be interesting.
You know what? Do you have, if you want to talk about anything that you have some for sale now?
I do have. I've got about 120,000 pounds of biomass available still. That was of about I don't know. Everybody throws out big numbers. These are real numbers, though, by the way. But about 2 million pounds is what we started with. 10% quantity. And if guys are out there looking for something, it's there. We do have some alternatives, and we're starting to work on as far as processing locally. We have a processing facility that just came on site, and we'll start processing all of our own stuff here hopefully in the next 10 days. And that'll change our dynamics here a little bit as well. Yeah, we're excited to have that. Although we don't know what it means yet.
I don't think anybody really knows, but the future is definitely bright. I still think the future is bright. We just have to get through this kind of a dark time in the industry right now. But I'll let you go back to doing what you were doing. And I definitely so much appreciate you coming on the show and talking with us.
You bet. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, buddy. Take care, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, guys. Oh, that was probably, I think, one of the best shows we've had. This is my, I think, 21st radio program. I don't know if they're all, there might be like 15 of them, but this has been a good show. If you'd like to be on the program, shoot me an email at radio@HempLogic.com, and let's get you on the show. You guys have a great rest of your day, and have a good one. Talk to you later.